Okay, we're not quite at a quorum, but we are going to get going. I will call this meeting to order on 6:04, 6/22/2026. Changes, additions to the agenda. We are going to skip over things like approval of minutes until we can take a vote. And I'd say we should be able to do that within the next few minutes. I'm sure someone else will pop up. But until then, we are going to skip over to, well, are there any other changes to the agenda, Christine?
Just the, their 7C termination, we're not having a termination tonight.
So no termination tonight. We'll skip over approval of minutes and go right to public participations and announcements. Public comment is not legally required, but we believe it is crucial for us to hear from our community members about their concerns over issues. Through these meetings, our board models for our students how to conduct public discourse, and that the board and members of our community can approach controversial issues in a civil and constructive manner and can demonstrate mutual respect. Having said that, please know that the board is here to listen. The public comment period is not designed for discussion. Please start by identifying yourself and what town you reside in. With that, is there any public comment today? You have some guests online. Worth. Go ahead.
Hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Great. Yeah, my name is Worth Daly. I'm the parent of two kids at Windsor School, one in the junior high and one in the elementary. And this is my first board meeting, so thank you for inviting us in. And I'm here largely to participate and get informed as much as possible about the budgetary issues that we're facing in the coming months, years, etc. But I think I'll leave my comments for now at that, as I'm getting the lay of the land here. But that's me. Hopefully I'll be in more meetings from here on out.
Okay. Thank you, Worth. And as a side note, occasionally when we have budget committees, we welcome community members to join those. So thank you for coming. Is there any other comments from the public? Any announcements from anybody? Well, as a Albert Bridge parent, I'd have to say the end of the year went out with quite the bang. Exciting to see the 6th grade class walk out, and from a parent point of view, the really positive feelings about of my child towards the school in general. It was just a great way that they ended the year. So thank you for all the staff, to the staff and the administration of Albert School. Anyone else? Okay. And at this point, what do we have for a count? Do we have 7 yet?
We do not.
Oh my goodness. So close, but yet so far. We will begin the administrative report.
All right, what first? Screening. All right, at the end of the year, I just wanted to highlight a couple of, add to what Bill was sharing. We did end the year with, on a high note, with lots of engaging opportunities for our students to shine. There's a couple pictures of, on the left is the Tri-M Fine Art Showcase this year, which was lovely. Students in Tri-M performing and getting awards. We had Panther Cub Night at Weathersfield, which is a wonderful tradition. At Weathersfield, they invite their incoming kindergarten students in, and they do some fun activities, meet their parents, give them some goodies for the summer, and it really helps the kids feel more comfortable coming to school. So those were some great highlights. We also had a couple of leadership days, one at Weathersfield, one at Heartland. Very different, both very successful and student-led for the most part. And then we had the prom, so I had to put a picture of the prom in there. And students looked amazing and did a great job of presenting themselves and then having fun at their prom. So we did end the year on a great note. I am gonna do kind of a summary annual report as required by the education quality standards. There's some things that we need to report on annually. I'm gonna report on some of those. We're just got a data report. Jen has some things to report on, and Tracy as well. But I get to go first. So for high school performance, these are the highlights of 2026. We had a 100% graduation rate. That excludes a few students who are on IEPs that are done, but actually stay because they are on transition plans until they're 21. So other than that, we had all our students that were enrolled graduate. We did have a dropout rate this year of 1.7% in grades 9 through 12. And a college rate, our college rates are
No. Okay, can you all hear now?
I think it's working now. Okay. Okay, I got thumbs up. So 38% of the class of 26 will be attending a 2- or 4-year college or is going into the military. And we had 195 students participate in clubs, National Honor Society, and Student Council, which is a lot, actually. In terms of student pathway data, which Kim Gogan helped compile all of these numbers for us. 47 students in flexible pathways, 53 students in career tech ed, 103 students who participated in virtual learning, 4 students participated in work-based learning, 56 in service learning and internships, 75 students participated in dual enrollment, and that is CCV courses and Running Start courses, which are taught by our teachers, but we have a partnership with the community college, and students who take those Running Start courses get college credit if they pass the course. So in some ways, somewhat like AP courses, but you don't have to take the test and pass it for it to count, and colleges take the credits because they're already college credits, and sometimes AP courses don't get translated. So 75 students in dual enrollment, 2 in early college, and we had 0 in advanced placement courses because we are not at this time offering advanced placement courses. But it is something we are talking about because it keeps coming up. We don't have to report this, but I thought it was interesting that we had 65% of our students participated in career training opportunities this year as well. So they are busy. For discipline data, this year we had 70 student conduct forms completed. Those are forms of potential HHB filled out by staff or it's from students to staff. Of those 70, 17 of those were opened as HHB, which is hazing, harassment, and bullying investigations. And of those 17, we had 14 of those cases that were substantiated. We had one investigation and 0 substantiated Title IX investigations, 27 in-school suspensions, and 61 out-of-school suspensions.
Can the audience, can you specify what a Title IX is? Investigation?
Title IX is sexual harassment under federal law.
Okay.
Yeah. I thought I saw a hand.
Elizabeth? Elizabeth?
Thanks. Is this all across the whole supervisory union?
It is, yes.
Okay,
SUI.
and the data about high school student pathways, is that also across the
Yes.
whole supervisory union?
It's Windsor High School. Yes, just Windsor High
Windsor.
School.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
yes. Yep. That's a great question.
Is there a
Okay.
breakdown of where the like proportionality of the HHB data?
You mean by school?
Yeah.
I can get that to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just let me make a note. Okay. So every year in the spring, we give the measured results assessment survey to our 4th graders and up to 12th grade students, our staff, and our families. This year we had 732 participants, and which is up from last year. We only had 673 last year, so that's encouraging. Last year, our targets, there are 3 main areas: academics, culture, and leadership. All of the questions lead into categories, and from those categories, we can look at them and set goals around where we're coming up short. So last year in academics, the target was student goal support. In culture, it was trusting relationships, and in leadership, it was pro-social behaviors. So those were our scores last year of 68, a 73, and a 73. We set some targets. This is where we landed this year. So we did make growth. We didn't hit our targets in academics and culture, but we did in pro-social behaviors, and I attribute that to all the work we did around discipline and making clear expectations for students. So these are the results from this year in those 3 areas. So up a little bit. Our leadership score last year was 74, this year 74.25, so a little bit of growth. Culture was 77, this year it's 78. Academics was 74, and it's 74.75 this year. It's interesting because it's different. It's not the same cohort of people taking the assessment every year, so it's good data, but not necessarily completely comparable. When we dig into the scores in leadership, our lowest area is family and community engagement. We are targeting family and community engagement as a goal next year. So that it really was, that was where we were headed anyway. So it was interesting that the survey data aligned with that work. In culture, trusted relationships still comes up as the lowest. So we're going to continue to work on making sure that we have trusted relationships among staff and students, and each student has a trusted adult in each building. That's very important. And then in academics, student goal support again came up as the lowest score. So we're working on making sure students understand why goal setting is important, helping them set goals and track their data and celebrate when they make growth. So that was the measured results assessment. We did this year do a middle school culture survey data this spring. It's the first time we've done one. And so I'm going to share some of the results, and then in Tracy's report, she's going to share how we're going to address some of these results. So
and what software?
we just made this
Okay.
survey.
Okay. How do you output it?
Google form.
Okay.
Google form. Yeah. Okay. And there's probably a better way to
Well,
do surveys.
I mean,
like we're manually going through the data.
right. I
So-
use Panorama, and I'm
Yeah.
not particularly happy with it.
Yeah, we've used it before. We're
Yeah.
happy with it. So we're still looking. Actually, Bridget just shared something with me around a survey that might be easier than our homegrown ones, but here's what the data shows. Somewhat disappointing, not necessarily surprising, but some of it's disappointing to us. So there is a divide in student experience. The dominant track, which is straight cisgender neurotypical males, are having a great sense of belonging and feel safe most of the time. And the other on the opposite side of that, our LGBTQ and our gender expansive students are not having that kind of experience. 65.4% of LGBTQ plus and do not feel a sense of belonging, and 72.7% of our gender expansive students do not feel a sense of belonging, and less than 50% report having a trusted adult on staff. So that's an area that we really need to address. It compounds when you have students who are LGBTQ plus and neurodivergent. So there is a really a very low feeling of belonging among that cohort, and a high percentage of those students are feeling hypervigilant. So they're always on edge, they're always stressed out, and they don't really feel a sense of safety most of the time. Our cisgender female and neurodivergent population. So if you're a cisgender neurotypical female, you report a high safety metric of 78.5. But if you are a cisgender female and you are not neurotypical, the score drops. So we've got some work to do around particular groups and making them feel safe and a part of something in our schools. Similar findings for students that are BIPOC and LGBTQ. So of the out of the multiracial, indigenous, or Black students who also identify as LGBTQ or questioning, 80% of that cohort lacks a sense of belonging in school. So they selected disagree or strongly disagree for feelings of belonging. So here's kind of a quick summary of the data. So these are percentages of students who report having a supportive adult at school by identity group. So there you see the cisgender males really feel connected to someone at school and have an adult they can go to and that they trust. Decrease for cisgender females. The percentages drop when you when it's the disabled or neurodivergent group, and drops even further when it's the LGBTQ or questioning youth group. And then at the very bottom, the most at-risk students or feeling students that feel they don't have somebody to go to in the school that they can trust are our non-binary and trans youth. So we have some plans to address some of these gaps that Tracy's going to share. And this is just a summary. So straight cisgender males, high sense of stability, safety, and belonging. LGBTQ, gender expansive, hypervigilance, low belonging, severe institutional distrust, and our disabled or neurodivergent students have feel isolation and they exhibit low daily safety scores. So concerning data. I'm going to move on to the staff culture survey. So this year, at the beginning of the year, we surveyed our staff, and then we surveyed them again this spring with the same survey data. We had 127 people participate in the spring. In the fall, I think we had about 230, so not everybody took it in the spring. But you probably don't recall this, but in the beginning of the year, I shared there were 3 areas in that survey that were areas that were of most concern. One was there's a sense of trust among staff at the school. So in the fall, 57.3% of our staff identified that there's a sense of trust in the school. In this last round, it was only 52%. For the question of, I believe that leadership listens to and acts on staff input, we did improve in that realm from 55 to 62%. And the other category or area that we were targeting was, I'm confident that adults at my school can have honest and difficult conversations. And so we did improve slightly in that category. So some growth, still areas to grow. I pulled a few of the questions from the survey just so that you can get a sense of what they're like, and showed their fall scores. The first column is the percentage of staff that agree or strongly agree, the middle is neutral, and the right-hand side is disagree or strongly disagree. So I feel acknowledged as a unique individual, recognized for my strength and appreciated for who I am. Some growth in that realm. I feel comfortable being myself at work. Improved from 72.9 to 80.5%. School leadership fosters a culture of belonging and respect. Some growth in that question area. This school treats staff fairly regardless of identity, race, class, gender, sexuality, ability, disability. A good amount of growth in that particular category, which we're happy about. And then I feel like I belong at my school. There was a slight decrease in who agrees or strongly agrees, a slight decrease in who disagrees, but more people in the neutral area. So I dug into this question a little bit just to break it down by identities or statuses. So for sense of belonging and disability status, you can see that there's a category of some people just don't answer that question, as you can see. And then a majority of people say no disability, and then some people say prefer not to say, and a fair share identify as staff with the disability. And you can see where they feel they belong or not. So we have some people that don't feel a strong sense of belonging in their school. A majority of people do, which is good, but we want everyone to feel like they belong. So I can break it down by race. I did kind of cover up some of the categories because the number of respondents was very low, but the data was positive, I will say. Sense of belonging, gender identity, and then sense of belonging and sexual orientation. Tracy and I have been going back and forth, and we're trying to dig into the each maybe the real important questions. They're all important, but the highest of importance questions, to break it down this way so we can see if there are groups that we really need to work with to make sure they feel safe and feel like they matter, and that they have trusted people that they work with. So it's really quite fascinating. I would love and we've been trying to use AI, but AI isn't always accurate, I'm finding. So went in and did these by hand, but Tracy and I know that we have to look question by question. And so Bill, if you have a tool that does it for us,
No, I don't.
love
Yeah.
to know what that is. Okay, so this is staff turnover. We're kind of all over the place tonight, but wanted to share some end of the year data. So this is from Jordan. We had 9 teachers depart this year. 5 of those were retirements. One of those was a teacher moving out of state, a different opportunity across the country. 1 was a reduction in force, and 2 found new employment. 1 was closer to home. I think they were both closer to home. For support staff, we have 9 total departures as well. 1 reduction in force, 2 new employment, and I think both of those are staff, or maybe at least 1 staff who got their degree and now have a teaching position within our district, which is great. 2 moving out of state, and 4 are furthering their education. So those are the turnover rates. We didn't have a lot of hiring to do this spring, which was great. So we'll have some onboarding to do, but a pretty minimal amount for next year, which is excellent. And then lastly, I am required by law to report this to you. We spend on our insurance through multi-line Visbit $361,090.66. So SUI, that's all of our districts together. It's a lot of money. But
Yes.
that is my report. I pass it on to Jennifer Holtz. So I will stop sharing.
Do you have my slides, Christine?
I don't know. Let me look.
Yeah, I shared them with Lori, but I can.
Elizabeth?
But before you move on, would you mind going back? I'm sorry, to the HHB slide again.
Yes. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah. Let me go back. Oops, hold on. This one. No, not this one. This one.
Yep. So
Yes.
if there were 70 student conduct forms completed, and there were only 17 HHB investigations, and there were only 14 substantiated HHB cases, why were there 61 out of school suspensions?
Those suspensions were for a variety of reasons. Yeah, could be, could be vaping, could be fight at school, could be, I mean, I'd have to dig in, but individual behaviors. So violations of our discipline protocols, students get suspended for a variety of behaviors.
Okay, and do all 4 of the schools have in-school suspension?
They try if they have the staffing to man it, but that is not always the case. And as you may or may not recall, we had a planning room person at Windsor this year for the fall, and then we didn't. So I think the principals try really hard because we would prefer in school. But if they don't
I
have
really
the
was
staff,
just wondering whether those in-school suspensions were across all 4 schools or not.
you know, I can check, Elizabeth. I don't want to say for certain, but I believe they all will have an in-school suspension if they can. But I don't want to give you false information, so I want to check to be sure.
Thank you.
Do that. Yeah.
Oh, one more thing. On the next slide, where students have been spending their time,
This one.
there.
Yeah.
Is Flexible Pathways open to every student? I believe it is.
Bridget's whispering yes in my ear.
I believe it is. So is virtual
in high
learning open to every student?
Virtual learning, I believe they'll work with Kim.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
flexible pathway option.
Right.
By law in high school,
Yeah.
flexible pathways have to be an option for everybody.
Elizabeth, we tend to, though, if there's a teacher to teach a course and it's a required course, it would be unusual to use flexible pathways unless perhaps after a couple tries, it isn't the right route. Other than that, usually for required courses, it is staff. Flexible pathways is used a lot of times for courses we don't offer and or obviously to meet a personal interest of a student.
That's what I was wondering, whether if, for example, we only offer one language pathway, if a student wanted to learn a different language, they have that as an option.
That is
Yes.
true. Yes, and some students do.
Yes.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, Jen Hulse, can you project your slides or not?
Yes, I can. Yep, absolutely.
Okay, 'cause Lori didn't share them with me. I'm sorry.
Okay. That's all right. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yep. Oh, okay, excellent. Well, that's a win. Okay, so I was standby. Asked to provide information regarding the Rule 4500 counts for this year, and then the number of safety care trained staff across the supervisory union. Remember that Rule 4500 is the restraint and seclusion law, and we have very specific expectations that we need to follow regarding Rule 4500. So as it pertains to young people placed in out-of-district therapeutic settings, we had a total of 38 restraints that were documented. And then within the SU schools, we had less than 10. Yes, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Excuse me. Can you give us an idea of, can you contextualize this 38 out of district? Like those are, I assume therapeutic schools, are they?
Yes, that's, yeah.
And
So
is that average, or what? Can you just give us some kind of scale for that?
So the total number overall of restraints that occurred in our out-of-district placements, which are our therapeutic settings for our most behaviorally challenged young people, we had 38. We have, I believe, at this point, 20 young people placed in therapeutic settings. And these are incidences where there were concerns around safety to self, others, and staff. Not elopements, but primarily physical harm or potential physical harm. So I can't tell you the number of kids that may have had more than one restraint. I would not be allowed to give you that information because it'd be too identifiable. What I can tell you is the total number from the first day of school till last day of school was 38 total for our kids in out-of-district.
Can you tell me, have you compared this data to neighboring districts who may use the same out-of-district placements?
I have not. I would have no reason to, but I certainly could. The out-of-district placements have to follow the same Rule 4500s that every other public school has to follow. I don't think this is indicative of over restraints. I think this, given the reports that I've read, and I read every single one that comes through, they've all been appropriately administered, and it really comes down to safety of staff, self, or others. I certainly could reach out to other districts if they'd be willing to share that information, but I don't necessarily think that they would be inclined to do so.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. And then within our own SU, all of our schools, we've had less than 10 Rule 4500s that have come through this year, which is a, nobody likes to consider restraint as part of the public school day. Unfortunately, it is. But I will say this is quite a low number compared to the previous district that I was working in. So I'm very comfortable as you can be with that number. Elizabeth?
Sorry, I
No
just, do you have any idea how many students that represents?
It represents all kids in every building. So Rule 4500 applies to every child within the building, regardless of whether they are receiving special ed 504 or other services. So you take our total population, grades pre-K to 12 across the district, and we've had 10 restraints this year.
It does sound like a small number, but it's not a small number if it's only one student being restrained that many
Correct.
times. So I just
correct, and I can let you know that it is not one student that is being restrained every single time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I think for the audience, it might be good to point out that a restraint is not always hands-on. There are.
Well, correct. So we do have escorts, and we do have restraints, and of course we follow the agency rules, and no one puts a hand on a child unless they are trained through safety care, which is the model that we use at the WSESU.
But does it also include seclusions?
I have not seen any seclusions come across my desk. And what I would say is, again, this number is less than 10, and is not representative of one student for the less than 10 number. And again, it is we go through the process, which is de-escalation is our priority. And we try to wait a kid out. We try to do all those things before we have to restrain a child, because again, nobody likes to do that. But if it comes down to safety of staff, self, or others, then we certainly do have to engage in restraint.
And looking at an SU at this size, less than 10 is an impressive
Yeah.
number.
Yeah,
But it is not.
when I saw this number again, given the context of the conversation, I was pleased with it, because I came from a district that was slightly bigger but had considerably more restraints. So I think this speaks to the work that that's going on in our schools around de-escalation and social skills learning in our SEIs. I think they're doing some really great work. They're really helping kids get through their day so that they don't get to a point of crisis. Any other questions about the 4500s? All right. And then the last bit of data I was asked to share is around, we utilize safety care. There are a number of approved models across the district to utilize when it comes to de-escalation restraint. There's CPI. I used to be a trainer for CPI. There is Handle with Care and Safety Care. So the fully trained staff that we have at ABS, we have 4. At Windsor, we have 10. At Wethersfield, we have 4. And at Heartland, we have 4. And then we have folks who have only been trained in the de-escalation piece, which are referred to as the chapters 1 through 4. And they cannot put hands on kids, but they are trained in utilizing the de-escalation process, which is key, because that's where we want to be able to support our youngsters before it becomes a crisis. And then we do have a full day training for recertification, which is scheduled for September 4th, which will be facilitated by Erin Rockwood, Jen Albee, and the third person's escaping my memory. Julia Barakian, and Annalise as well will be participating in that. Any questions around those numbers? No? All right. That is all I've been asked to share. So I will stop sharing my screen.
Share again. Each time you can just stop it. It will just show data. Okay. Okay, we're ready, Rich? Awesome. Yeah. All right. Hello, everyone, and we're going to share some data, but also reflect on some of the curriculum initiatives of this year and where we're heading a little bit next year, partly as a result of the data. So, first thing we look at in this presentation is early literacy, which we captured through DIBELS, M-Class DIBELS. And what we see with our literacy scores, they were very low in the fall. They were at 35%. They increased to 50 by winter and to 54 by the springtime. So tremendous growth in early literacy. Part of this, well, first of all, hats off to kindergarten because they showed the most growth, and which, if you think about it, some of these children are being exposed to, reading for the first time and literacy skills. And it's sometimes not unusual to see the highest growth, but something's going right with our K classes because they have shown very strong growth. Due to Act 139, we actually focused this year, the teachers, interventionists, and instructional coaches on early literacy. We also participated in a Vermont initiative. So we're, no one is happy until that's 100%, but the growth from 35 to 54 shows the kind of effort being put forth, and we hope that will continue. We have the opportunity, I think, to have some continued partnership with the AOE, which is for next year, which is wonderful. Moving on. Sorry. Yep, one more. So this is the grades 3 through 5, measured by STAR reading benchmark scores. Upper elementary reading improved mid-year to 56%. We have noticed third grade, for whatever reason, there's a lot of, in talking to my instructional team leaders, we talk a lot about that. It's a big hop from second to third grade and what's expected. We've noticed that our third grade classes across the SU are not performing as well as the others. So this is pulled down to a degree by third grade. Part of it is that our CKLA program teaches skill work K through 2 as a separate strand. And from third grade on, it's embedded as part of the entire program rather than a separate teaching moment. And next year that will change because this program has come out with a third grade skills sequence, which we've already put into our teachers' hands last month. So they know it's out there and available and we'll be using it. We do think the dropping of skills by this program as a separate strand was a bit too early, and that our third grade needs specific skill work, as the K-1-2 classes have. So we're hoping we see some growth in that third grade group. So that's that one. It's done. So this is middle level, which we tend to have very good scores in. This is, even though it went from 67 to 64, it is generally our sixth grade class especially, which tends to perform, higher, much higher than the seventh and eighth grade. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. But our reading scores generally in the middle level tend to remain in relatively decent and strong shape. Part of this is because literacy is taught in science and in social studies also. So they get this continual vocabulary application. We were in a science room and they were working on a writing piece. So they get it dosed sometimes 3 times a day. And you just can't beat that, especially around nonfiction reading and what that does. So again, sixth grade being our strongest performance, but overall, students tend to be meeting the benchmark. We've got in the red, a number of those students are on IEP plans and, continue to get support. So overall, that's a strong area. Grade 9. Yep. So we're looking at grade 9. This was a drop. There could be a number of reasons for this. One is that the burnout in testing our grade 9 to Vermont caps in both reading and math. And this test is given a number of weeks after. So I do think there is a slight investment situation there. The good news is that we're still seeing growth, even though they're not moving a level within their level. We're seeing, for example, 62% grew from fall to spring. So they're growing, but they're not growing enough to move themselves out of a benchmark. So the red is also yellow, and we have a number of students that are a question or two away from being in the green. So the question is, how do we push more of those students who are so close to meeting the benchmark to meet that benchmark? And the 9th grade team will be looking at that data. We don't test our 10th graders because they take PSATs. If you were at the Windsor presentation, they had scores for PSAT 10s, PSAT 11s, and SATs. So anyone who wants to see that public is welcome to take a look at that. But we feel like the PSAT 10s are great. By spring, it's time to get those sophomores not only practicing the SAT, but using that data. So that's what we look at in the spring. This is STAR Math. 48% in the winter and 47% in the spring is not a large difference, especially since the spring test encumbers all of the standards. So it's a harder assessment overall. Overall, we were at 40% in the fall. And so now we're at nearly 47%. So there was growth in our math scores. Grade first, just off the charts for across the SU, which is wonderful, and even grade second. So they were at 35% in the fall, and now they're up in the 60s. So huge growth in our early elementaries. Part of that was Windsor contributed part of that. I don't usually pull out schools, but they began a program called Number Corner, which is a Bridges supplement to encourage fluency. a lot of talking about math and fluency and reasoning. And it's one of the most wonderful things to go and see a classroom where they're doing number corner in the morning. The nice thing about this is we saw these results and now we've got number corner available in all of our schools. So that's a big plus, and they'll be fully rolling that out in the fall. They got an intro this spring with a full rollout in the fall. And teachers were asking for it. They saw what was going on in Windsor in the elementary school, and other teachers from other schools were saying, can we get this? And we made it happen, which is wonderful. So continue to look at fluency, spiral review, whatever your program is, you need both of those to be going on. And I think that the culture, in the classrooms, teachers just say, yep, we had spiral review, we want some more work around fluency. And I think that culture, there's been a big shift about this. We will be focusing on math in the fall. So that's this year we did early literacy. Our focus in the fall will be for K-5 will be on math. So we're going from there. And intervention, I can't say enough about that. And again, we've got some focus intervention at all the schools in the fall in math. And we've had very positive results from having interventionists. I can't say enough about the kind of work that they do, the tracking of data that they do through EduClimber. They do very specific progress monitoring, which wasn't in place until this year across all of the schools that's expected. And those results are kept in EduClimber. So really, really good news. So next up. So this is 6 through 8 data. We have a 66% sixth grade proficiency rate in math. Now, if you look overall, we are at 54 in the winter and now at 51. So our sixth grade, quite honestly, has not been an issue across the SU in general. But then when we get to 7th, it drops to 54. And when we get to 8th, it drops to 36. We're seeing a tremendous dropout, as is the state. And that's not an excuse because, but it's a trend and a pattern within the state of 8th grade and 9th grade performance. And we'll see that on the next slide also. We're seeing it in Vermont CAPS also, so it isn't unique necessarily to STAR, but how our 8th graders and 9th graders perform in math is a super focus area. What often happens is we do great work with intervention in the early elementaries, to a degree in the middle, but not so good when we get to 8th and 9th grade. And that, working with Kate Ryan, we've got some ideas in terms of 9th graders. But also 8th grade, it's a setup that we've got now in the middle school for next year's schedule to provide intervention. And we're well aware that our 8th and 9th grade data, again, like the state who has their own initiatives around this, is not anywhere where we want it to be. So I'm not concerned about our program. I think mainly what happens with our program, adhering to it, number one, and number two, getting through it. So there tends to be a little bit more time spent on sort of catching up on skills, and then they've got to be exposed in order to be able to take assessments. And so getting through the program and proper pacing, those are things that we're going to be focusing on next year. We do have Algebra 1, as you may have heard, at every single school this year. Kids aren't going to be bused. So we have an Algebra 1 class in Wethersfield, taught by a teacher there in Heartland and also in Windsor. And they're all using Eureka Algebra 1. And we've done professional development work that just the last couple of weeks to get them organized and ready to go. And it's a fairly rigorous program of algebra. So I'm hoping we see some of the positive results. That's 8th grade algebra from that. Anyway, that's definitely a focus area, especially in our 7th to a degree, but our 8th and 9th. So you see the 9th grade scores. 36% met the benchmark in the spring scores. And again, our Vermont CAP data is pretty similar. We need a lot of work. I've been working with Kate Ryan about this. She's made some changes in what we do with our 9th grade math program. Stay tuned. I'm hoping we see some positive results next year. And again, I'm not going to use excuse. It's not unique to Windsor, but this is, we need improvement in this area. Okay, continuing. So this is free and reduced lunch. Again, we maintain, you want to you know, talking about cross-sectional data, we maintain this 10% gap generally between students at an economic disadvantage and students that are not. It's 10% in reading. Doesn't seem to move a whole lot, which is, I think, in part student engagement, family engagement. Those are students that tend to change schools the most. There are also students that can sometimes be disenfranchised with school, certainly by the time they get to high school. So what's driving what, it's unclear, but we're not making as much progress about closing that gap as I would like to see. And as you understand, there's a lot of data behind this data to know who are those kids and what kind of transitions have they had? What is their investment in school? How can we reach out a little better to support them both through intervention and also family support in terms of family engagement? Anyway, that's again, that's all grade levels. So it's not just a high school or middle school issue. And then when you look at it in terms of math, you see the gaps even greater. Again, a lot of the things that I talked about, the disparity has grown beyond 10%. And this is a very interesting statistic I found. Nationally, the racial achievement gap appears to be reducing. Okay, so when we look at race as a factor, the gap between performance tends to be reducing. The socioeconomic gap has not. So where the focus has been, who knows, but the gap remains 34 out of 50 states. The achievement gap continues. And again, some of the issues are what we call chronic poverty issues, including willingness to stay in school and changing school districts and the rest. So something to keep an eye on, both obviously at the national level, but what can we do to support students that are at an economic disadvantage that we're currently not doing, especially in math. The next two slides are students, Bill and I talk about this, that students that are on an IEP, we clearly have an achievement gap. And once again, there's a reason with which we're providing services for students that are on IEP. And when those students begin to demonstrate meeting the benchmarks, they're often move out of services. Hence, we don't see this huge change from, you know, year to year. What is better maybe to dig into, and this is information Jen and I could look at, is that what is the area of disability, and are we seeing achievement gap issues around an area that is not their disability? So that would be very interesting to dig into. Not that reading can't hinder math performance, but if the same group of students are showing difficulty in math performance and it's not a processing thing or something that would generally affect, why is that? And is there something we could be doing? I don't know enough to know until we really would dig into that data.
Another snapshot that might be simpler to do is to achievement level of all students who have ever been on an IEP. And then
Interesting. Yep.
you would get a much wider look at the success or failure rate of that department.
Yeah.
Not department, but that group of students.
Interesting. And it's, you know, speech services are, you know, sort of a different ball game in terms of affecting some areas of literacy, but it's just hard to know, you know, but I like that suggestion, Bill, and I think Jen and I could have a good conversation about that. Yeah.
Then you wouldn't necessarily, because I think what's going to happen is if you try to put out a report based upon particular disabilities, your group is going to be too small.
Yeah, correct. Correct. Yep. Agreed. It's a great suggestion. So
yeah, I guess I'm unclear of that direction, because when we're looking at disabilities, we have comorbidity, right? And so a child with specific learning disability or speech language impairment in particular, that may impact their reading. So I guess I'm wondering what the goal would be, or what if we're digging into data, I would need some clarity on what it is that we are trying to get to. Because we also have kids that have multiple disabilities. They have emotional disturbance or other health impairment or speech language impairment. all those things are very complex, and the adverse effect oftentimes it's either in basic reading or basic math or functional skill. So I think it's a little more complex than just pulling out the data. I think we need, if this is something we want to put our time into, I need a little bit more of a cleaner lens as to what the expectation is and what the data is that we're trying to get to. And I'm not really clear on that right now.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things that would be helpful from my standpoint as a board member, and just to look at the performance level of students on IEPs. How are they performing longitudinally in the long range? And so if a student had for example, a reading disability, and the special ed instruction, the specialized instruction was extremely successful, right? This sort of breakdown, students on an IEP doesn't show that student anymore because they've been removed from the IEP. They still may have a 504, but if just sort of a quick snap longitudinally, all students K-12 who at one point or another had an IEP, how are they performing as a whole? Another good indicator is all students with a reported disability. And so the feds do this in there. So it's either a 504 or an IEP. It's a documented disability. And how are they performing? That just might be, it may not necessarily achieve anything, but I just think it would give a broader glimpse on how Windsor Southeast Supervisory Union is performing with students with disabilities. Because those disabilities don't go away if they go off an IEP or if they get off a 504. Those disabilities are still there. So how are they performing as a whole? So I think that would be a much more useful than looking at how students are based upon their particular disability. Because Jennifer, I think you're absolutely right. That sort of category of kids and that sort of specific. I don't think we want to see how students with a reading disabilities are doing. We want to see how Windsor Southeast Special Ed Department, the money that we're spending, what return are we having on our dollar for that large amount of money that we're spending, and just looking at students over a long longitudinal time would give us a better picture.
Okay, I can certainly give you exit data, and so just so the board understands, we're talking about 300 kids that are currently eligible for special ed services. So are you looking specifically at kids that have exited and are currently enrolled and wanting to understand how they are performing? Because that's a pretty big ask, and it's going to take some time to pull that data. So I just want to be clear on what the board is asking for.
I'm not saying that, oh, tomorrow can we send me this? I'm just saying in future years, when in this particular presentation in particular, to have that in a listing of actively enrolled students who at one time or another received special ed services.
Okay.
Based on their performance at this point. That's all.
Okay. All right.
For the summer, I'm not talking for the past, but just in the future, to sort of, because we have this discussion every time. And
Not today.
before we had our wonderful new curriculum coordinator, I was the one who was bringing it up usually. Be like, oh, well, this is the result of the fact that students who are on an IEP are there for a reason. And so once we work with them, they become off this report. So this disparity in this, and especially in reading, this disparity between those who meet the standards who don't meet the standards will always be there because of the nature of the report. And so to counter that, to say like, say we have 500 students who are on an IEP or have ever been on an IEP, and you see that it's more of a balance, then you can see this, the success of what, your department does and what your teachers do and what the schools in general do, because those successes are there. When a student leaves an IEP, that's a success. From my
Okay.
standpoint, being a kid who used to be on an IEP.
Yep, I just needed some clarity as to, it was not clear what folks were looking for. So I can certainly add that to a report out moving forward.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Okay, now we're on, slide 17. So, okay.
I'm with you.
So last year, at some point in time, the board requested, for very good reasons, how is a group of students who were third graders, how they do at the end of third grade versus how are they doing at the end of fourth grade. So this is a picture of, remember, the blue and green of third to fourth are the same group of students, which I actually find very interesting. So for example, in this picture with reading, this group of current fourth graders were 53% had met the benchmark. Now it's 59% of them met the benchmark in the area of reading. Fourth to fifth, we do see a drop, although overall our grades, more of our students in each grade level are meeting the benchmark in the following year, which is a good sign that they're growing. So fifth to sixth, take a look at that. I've mentioned earlier our sixth grade reading scores, 72% have met the benchmark in our sixth grade group. 6 to 7, slight growth, and that's that same, like, not enough growth for my taste, but 7 to 8, similar situation in reading. And then 8th to 9th, we have seen somewhat of a drop off. That's funny data, because that is not the same group of students, because we have a large number of kids that are tuitioned out to other schools. So that does not include students that attend other schools. That's our entire 8th grade class last year, and how our current 9th grade class of just Windsor School is doing. Okay.
And some of those kids tuition in.
Yeah.
towards
And
it.
some of those kids, yeah, that throws the
Right.
data too.
Right.
Good point.
Yeah.
Some of the tuition in from other
other
districts. So if we look at our star math, we first to second grade, I already mentioned that first grade tends to be one of our strongest grade levels in math. So whatever's happening in our second grade, there's a slight drop in the number of students that are meeting the benchmark. Second to third, we're seeing some growth. Same group of students, third to fourth. Fourth to fifth, growth continues. Take a look at fifth to sixth. That sixth grade program at this point in time in both reading and math is doing extremely well. Sixth to seventh, this is that drop off that I mentioned earlier in the slides. We start to see a decline starting in 7th grade, dropping even more in 8th grade. And again, our 8th to 9th grade data is not really indicative of much, because it's a sort of a different group of students. Nonetheless, remains concerning, as I mentioned earlier. So I think if you were looking at this, you would understand why the 8th to 9th grade, 8th and 9th grade remain a focus in terms of math and what kind of work we need to do. All right, the next set of data, 20 and on, are kind of more interesting, to be honest with you, at the school level. I'll go through it, but you see this exact same data presented in the school reports. But I will mention a few things here. We have a 94% attendance rate. I looked it up. It's 92% nationally, so that was kind of a good number. We have a lot of tardies, but in a way, it's interesting, because remember, it's 7-period day in the high school. Most of these are from the high school. 7-period day times how many students, and then you realize that those numbers can go if a child is rolling into class late, say even the same kid numerous times, that data quickly gets pushed up to the number of tardies. I think it's like 3 tardies, and it's counted as you do detention or something. So it's not like they're allowed to do this, but they are reported, and that's good news. But it is high school that is the highest. Not surprisingly, middle school is second, and elementary only gets measured for tardiness the first period of the day. So just to keep that in mind, because once they're there, they're safely there, and there's not usually other than first period being late for first period, not usually any measures after that. So just keeping that in mind. On slide 21, these are logins per session. We had a slight decline for a while. Then spring hit, so it popped back up, and so these are the average logins in session per day. It's interesting, September and October are highest. I think I echo Christine's thought that we've got a very clear behavior matrix now, and I do think it's affected behavior in a positive way, clear consequences and the culture of the school. So no matter what, we never reached our September, October login numbers, and I think that's a really positive sign. I think students are much more aware of the behavior matrix as our staff, and I think it does affect the climate and culture of the school in a positive way. Most dashboard shows you once again, as it does at the school levels, most of our behavior incidents are in the classroom, and with a few other areas like the playground sort of standing out as the next, what we call unstructured play areas, not surprisingly, or hallways. So none of this changed much from when I was a child, doesn't make it right, but just awareness. And a lot of those, just so you know, these also can be minors. Like if you look onto the next slide, actually this is time of day, middle of the day, lunch period, recess period, hungry on their way to one of these. It tends to concentrate a lot in the middle of the day when we have more unstructured time. But it's this one that I found interesting. It's disruption, disrespect, defiance tend to be the highest. So we call it the 3 Ds, right? So that's classroom behavior, and teachers are trying to set norms in their classroom, and some things are just not okay. And so logins around those 3 working to shape behavior are not unusual. They're usually classified as minors, so they're not suspendable, they're not in school suspension, but they might get a log entry. And parents are contacted, and it might be a little time in the buddy room or whatever it happens to be. But I would say most of those are absolutely categorized under what we call the minor category, not a major category. So, yep, that is my report. I do want you to know next year, I mentioned the elementary level focus on math and some of the universal design for learning, so UDL practices around math, not to mention fluency and just looking at our achievement data. Also 8, 9, concentration on math, not so much in our professional development work, but what we're going to do within the school system itself. But advisory and swarm, those are our focus for middle school next year, around personal learning plans, because it's a state requirement. What are they? How do we get them more uniform? How do we get them more useful? Making connections in advisories, having, we're going to do some training around restorative practice, not around you are bad and now do restorative work. It's around restorative circles. How do we encourage trust and building relationships within those advisories and swarm? So our professional development work in the fall is really looking at making swarm and advisory time that not only students look forward, but teachers look forward to, and we're building trusting relationships. Christine mentioned culture and trusting relationships. So that will certainly be part of our focus for the middle and high school level. So, okay.
Tracy.
One more.
All right, here we go. All right. Okay. So some of what you're going to hear me say, I think aligns a lot with what you've just heard. And I just want to echo some comments like Christine had shared. Some of the findings in our culture survey, are pretty alarming. Also, like some of what Bridget just shared, right, is like some of this is not unique to us at Windsor, right? But these are part of some bigger patterns that we're seeing. So I think that context matters in how we're talking and thinking about all this. So, one thing that we've really been trying to do this year is get better about asking who's missing and why. This is part of a practice in using an equity filter, right? And we're not just talking about, you could use this in so many different ways, but part of it is thinking about, I found this quote from a sociologist, and he said, neither the life of an individual nor the history of a society can be understood without understanding both, right? Like we are all in this moment in time where we're being influenced, impacted by the context that we are currently living in. Right. And so this is how I've been sharing out any of the reports that I've given you all, is looking at individual, cultural, institutional, right? These are nested parts of our context and the system that we are living in. Whether we're using this to look at oppression, whether we're using this to look at prevention, like the Vermont prevention model, it always comes back to looking at these different levels of how things are happening, right? We as individuals don't exist without the layers of policy and culture, right, that we find ourselves in. And so this was something that I had shared with you all originally when we were talking about what racism is, right, and how racism shows up. But you can apply this to any sort of isms, right? It's again thinking about there are policies and practices at the institutional level that keep those things in place, the cultural narratives and norms, right? Like we wouldn't be able to create policies if we didn't have certain cultural narratives and norms. And then there are the ways that we hold on to individual beliefs and behaviors that may even unintentionally perpetuate different patterns that we see. So it's like we've really got to factor in all these levels when we think about how we are becoming aware of what's happening, especially nuances around identities in our schools, and also how we are creating interventions. So this is just an example, right, of how we see this at play. We can think about all the headlines, or especially targeting transgender folks, right, that we have seen, especially in the last couple of years, which on the right, you can see it's like how these narratives ultimately impact people's risk, right? We know that Black trans women are consistently under threat, right? Are the ones who are also impacted most by not just these narratives, but these narratives become policies. So this is just a snapshot looking at anti-trans bills. We know that these are showing up across our country, right? And especially look at how many more of these policies have been introduced in the last couple of years, right? Versus 10 years ago. And so it's like, why is that happening? Why is that happening? Here's a snapshot of just state bills that have been introduced, anti-trans bills, and all of the different ways that these are looking at educational systems, rights to gender affirming care. So the point of this, right, is all of these things work together. Narratives, holds, policies in place. All of these things exist and also ultimately impact individuals. This was something that I found, which I thought was kind of fascinating. And so what you're looking at on your screen, this was a study that was done looking at 58 different groups of people who have been marginalized, stigmatized over the last 100 years. And so all the different colored lines are showing how many different negative words and associations were directed toward a particular group, right? One of these 58 groups, which the 58 groups include groups like transgender folks. They include different religions like Jewish or Muslim. They include different races. They even include homeless, right? It's like looking at the negative associations that have been paired with different identities over the last 100 years. The black line that you see is the average of those associations, which you can see is below 0. So essentially what this is saying is that negative stigmas, negative word associations with specific groups of people over time have not changed. So it means that like we are not moving the needle when it comes to the kinds of narratives that we are talking about people, right? And they are going to continue to create these systems of impact and oppression as long as those narratives don't change. I thought this was, I mean, it's like, what are all the things that holds this stuff in place? And it's no surprise, right? If these are what the patterns are doing, if this is what is happening around us in the context that we live in, right? And this is basically a quote from this article that's just saying, like, if we don't do anything to actually address these underlying motivations to stigmatize groups, like nothing's going to change, right? We're going to continue to keep reinforcing these patterns over time. So it's not surprising, right, that we are seeing in our schools from the recent culture survey that gender expansive youth reported to have a 0% belonging, right? I mean, we don't have to, We can ask, like, why is this happening? Why are they missing? Why are they missing this experience of belonging, right? And we can't ask that question without also taking into the context of everything that is happening around us, including in our schools, okay? So just for some context there. So it means that when we think about what do we need to do to address this, we have to always be thinking about these different levels, right? Individual, cultural, and institutional, which we do. So some of the ways that we are going to be, continuing to build our capacity on all of those levels. One is continued relationship and partnership with Outright Vermont next year. So we had a cohort of school counselors and social emotional interventionists and some folks who were part of a cohort this last year, building capacity to think about how we are supporting LGBTQ plus students in our schools. So we're going to continue to work with them, and the hope for this year is that we're going to work on more of a leadership team level. So build the capacity of us all as administrators and leaders in schools so that we can support the systems and structures, right, in response to what we're seeing in our culture surveys, okay? The other partnership that we're going to continue is with Up for Learning. And like Bridget was just mentioning, a lot of this is going to be working with them to support capacity building for adults in restorative practices, how this can be integrated within their classrooms, even if they're talking about academics, right? How can you have a circle where you can talk about math? Or a way of debriefing, a way of building relationships and community and hoping to get at the distrust, right, that some students are feeling with not even having one adult who they trust in schools. So this is going to be a combination partnership with Up for Learning, again, restorative practices. They also do a lot with youth participatory action research. So the high school students, yeah, you all had high school students who've been working with Up report out to you about the culture survey that they were doing in the high school. So that work will continue, but we're going to add middle school into the mix too for this partnership next year. And so we're going district-wide, and it has a lot to do with youth-adult partnerships. Y'all can see these slides later. There's not a whole lot to them, but other than just saying, like, we're going to have 3 district-wide in-service days where all middle school and high school staff are going to be learning about how to integrate restorative practices in their classrooms. Bridget and Christine and I had a great conversation about a week ago with Up for Learning, talking about how we can really hit the ground running with these trainings and practices. We are going to also have 2 SU-wide middle school conferences or gatherings, right, with a particular group of students, which may also overlap with the Leader and Me Lighthouse teams that we've been working with over the last few years. We're going to bring the group, the youth leaders and adult leaders from schools together across the SU to look at, right? We have culture survey data now from the middle school. So what is their ongoing role with some of that culture work going to look like? How do we really integrate this in a way that's going to ultimately change the results that we saw in our culture survey results? So again, all of this is just to say that these are the parts that it's going to include. There's going to be continued work with the high school teams, and really shout out to Kate for the way that she's thinking about restructuring advisory that will ultimately support, right, those trusting relationships with adults, but not keep kids segregated. Like, they need to have somebody, some place where they can have relationship and trust in order to then also be able to work across differences, right, and be in relationship with a broader diversity of folks. And so, yeah, continued cohort work with Outright Vermont, the restorative practices with Up for Learning. We also, I've mentioned before, some of the work that we're doing to look at, right, our curriculum is like, what are the narratives that are present in our curriculum? What's missing, who's missing, and why? And also looking at implementing our policies and procedures. But again, thinking about that whole nested context of institutional policies, practices, stories, narratives, and individual personal level and all that. Okay, I think I did it. And Elizabeth, I see your hand. And then I'll share this one last thing. Yes.
Thanks, Tracy. I wonder whether, if you said it before and I missed it, I apologize, but I didn't hear you say whether how much of this is required.
Oh, It is, and that's like shout out to, Bridget, Christine, our leadership group for really thinking about this is going to be part of in-service, of in-service days. We have 3 in-service days that'll be September, October, and January, where middle and high school staff are going to be required to participate in that learning.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And we were also talking about too is like, are there ways between those in-service trainings, right? And appreciate you and how you're always bringing up accountability, right? Is like, what are the things that we can be asking staff to do even between those in-service days? And so I think we're going to have some good specific things to hold folks to. Yes.
I've got one more question.
Yeah.
Is any of this going to be offered to non-teaching staff?
Are you thinking community or board or who specifically?
I'm thinking about other staff members who are not necessarily teachers.
Support staff.
Yeah, I think that's the plan, right? I mean, I'm looking around the room too, Bridget. I mean, I know, what are your thoughts on that? I thought we talked about like all middle and high school staff, but maybe.
I believe it is. I got to double check with Jen, but I believe that certainly a number of those days, the support staff is participating in the exact same training.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And just the last thing I wanted to close with, I don't know if folks are familiar, oh my God, why am I totally spacing on their name?
Elliot.
Somebody who could, thank you. Thank you. I'm like, it's so small on the screen, I can't see it. Elliot Page, yes. Who, they're an actor, they're transgender, they're open about being transgender. And they said they think the sense of growing up as a queer kid and feeling alone, because you feel you're alone, even of course, in retrospect, if you are not. This feeling of exclusion, right? I think that speaks to some of the results that we saw in our culture survey. They also have this new movie out that's called Second Nature, which is a documentary. And I don't think it's a spoiler alert to say that they've said that like there are over 1,500 animals in the animal world who are very gender expansive. Like this is more like an aspect of, anyway, I'm interested in watching this. I don't know if anybody has seen this, Elizabeth. I don't know if your comment is specific to Second Nature, but I'm looking forward to just learning and like, what are the narratives that I have held about these binaries and how much can that be challenged when I learn about how much more expansive.
I just had a conversation with one of my kids about not this movie, but about the variances in the natural world. And we both pointed out that there are 1,500 species that have variances of sexuality and that they're not shunned by other members of those species.
Yes.
We're the only species that shuns.
Yeah, which is such a curious, it's like, why, who is missing and why? Like, who is missing and why? So thank you for that. Okay. That's all I got. Thanks all.
Thank you, Tracy.
Okay. We got a count here. Did we reach 7? I emailed that. Did you text people? Sarah was like, I can log on.
She did say she could log on for votes, didn't she?
Good.
We did. Let me text her. At least for the new hires. That'd be
Yes.
really helpful.
Yes, that's really what I'm most concerned with. That's just kind of a.
Can I just have a look for 5 minutes?
Yeah.
5 minutes, okay. Okay, let's see what we got. Who else is not here? I can text. John is not here.
Heather,
Others on, in the Azores.
in the where?
Azores?
Oh my goodness.
That sounds great.
It's probably 2 of them all. Oh, good time change.
Anne Marie's here.
Anne
Sarah-
Marie
Yeah,
is
Anne
here.
Marie's here, yeah. Where was it from? 1, 2, 3. 5, 6, yeah.
Sorry for the pause, everybody. We're just, what we have left on the agenda, other than setting the next agenda, which we will do shortly, is, who's on?
I'm gonna call John.
Okay.
Go ahead, sorry.
Is it requires us to have a quorum. And the most important part is to, first, the, 7 resignations and new hires.
Resources.
What did Sarah say? Should we try to log on?
Yes.
The end? She was at her daughter's dance recital.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. That may interrupt their dance recital.
It's rehearsal.
It's rehearsal.
It's rehearsal?
Yeah.
Oh. Could she just do it from the phone?
Yes. Yeah. Dance recital. That's its own special type of purgatory.
I know we have, it's dance recital week. It is.
I love baseball, and my kids decided not to play baseball.
That's okay. Would you be willing to just be on my phone and I'll put you on speaker and we have to approve some new hires, but we need you for the vote. Okay, I'll do that. Okay, thank you. Sorry to bother you. Okay. She's gonna be on speaker on my phone.
Okay.
Okay, so that's good. All right, I'll
Yeah.
put her on speaker. Sarah, you are on speaker for whenever you're ready. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so we're items for discussion followed by a motion. Resignations.
So we did have one resignation today. It is a support staff member from SU. Her name is Judy
Duhane.
Duhane, sorry. Thanks, Jen. So,
I will take a motion to accept the resignation of
Judy Duhane.
Judy Duhane.
So moved. Elizabeth.
Second, Megan.
Second, Megan. Okay. Let me get to my list. I'm sorry. This is probably should be around the head. Elizabeth, how do you vote?
Aye.
Amy,
Aye.
Megan,
Aye.
Sarah,
Aye.
Anne Marie,
I'm also an I, but a sad I, because I shall be missed
Yeah.
at Weathersfield.
Beth Ann.
Thumbs up.
Okay. And I am an I.
We got Sarah.
Got Sarah.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Is that it for resignations?
Yep.
Okay. New hires?
So I can start. I think Jen might have some, but,
Yeah.
so these are title SU hires.
Okay.
Not that it's SU employees. So Erica Euling from Weathersfield, is to be hired as an interventionist. She's had 6 years of special ed at Weathersfield. Needless to say, she has her MA in literacy, training in OG, Orton Gillingham, science of reading, background, also experience with OGAP, which is a math ongoing assessment project, and an expert at differentiation, in part due to her special ed experience. So we're extremely happy to have her as an interventionist at Weathersfield, but she's an SU employee. She will be taking Amy Cam's position, who is moving over to Heartland as a reading specialist. So
No,
we're not
she-
losing.
She's moving to Heartland to be a special education interventionist.
Oh,
Amy
special,
can.
okay, got it. So special education interventionist for, I knew it was under special ed group somewhere. So that's my first one. Do we do both?
Yep.
Okay. And the second one is Jess Sivret, who you all probably know, many years of experience teaching at Weathersfield since 2009. Also has her master's in education. Tremendous experience in elementary. She's very data driven. She's coming in as an instructional specialist, working at a number of the schools in the SU, including Heartland and Windsor Middle. She's been a director of after school programs. She's been on the Vermont Standards Board, Lighthouse Leader, a host of other things. Incredibly excited about the job. I'm very excited about having her. So that's the second one.
And then
Okay.
Jen has some.
Jen?
Yes, so I have Tracy Hink, who I would like to put into the vacancy that was created by Maggie Brush. Maggie was the SLP serving the youngsters at Windsor and across the district. Tracy Hink is a find. I'm currently contracting with UVM to get her audiology services. She's a speech language pathologist and an audiologist, and she will be coming on board as a 0.9 FTE, replacing Maggie. And I'm super excited about her skill set. She did work for Windsor, I understand, a year before this past year. So she is familiar to us as an employee as well. The second new hire is Christy Wariaz, replacing Erica Yingling at Weathersfield for middle school special educator. She's coming to us from Charlestown, New Hampshire. Her references were excellent. She's got a great vibe, great personality, and was well liked during an interview. And I'm super excited to be bringing her on board as well. And that will round out Weathersfield, who has been short a special educator since November.
Is that the last one, Trace? I mean, Jen, sorry.
I've got a couple in the hopper, but they're not ready to come forth yet.
The hopper, okay.
In the hopper.
Hopper, the chopper. Okay, I will take a motion to hire Tracy Pink, Christine
Pink.
Warhart.
Hink.
Pink?
Hink.
Hink. Christine, Tracy Hink.
Christy Wariaz.
Christy Warhag, and,
Erica Yuling and Jess Sivert.
okay, thank you. These mean names. Elizabeth Burrows.
So moved.
Aye.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
So moved.
So moved.
Okay, thank you.
Second, Elizabeth.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Megan. Trying to rush here. That's always a bad thing. How do you vote, Elizabeth?
Aye.
Oops. It's John Harrison calling.
Okay, Amy,
Aye.
Megan,
Aye.
and Beth Ann,
Aye.
Anne Marie,
Aye.
Sarah,
Aye.
and I am an I.
Woo, we did it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
everybody.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. I'll let
Thank
you go
you.
back to the
All right.
recital.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Okay. And,
Okay.
with that, let's, setting the next agenda.
So our retreat is
Retreat,
is
yeah.
August 17th. Larry and I met with Tracy Wren today. She's gonna help facilitate. We were working on the agenda, so I will send it to you. We're not
Okay.
done.
Okay,
It's a work in progress.
Do we hold on policies?
We're gonna have to hold on policies.
yeah,
Yep,
just because of all the wonderful thing he does.
yep. So we'll move those to the next meeting. Yep. So August 17th at 5 p.m. room 210.
Yep.
So next time we'll see each other.
And, if we have time, we could probably whip through these politics.
Okay.
Like,
Well, I'm thinking we're gonna have to call a quick morning meeting to do some hiring. Because
Okay.
Jen's not done hiring.
Okay.
So probably in the next couple weeks. Jen, do you think
Yeah,
that's
that would be
reasonable?
better
We'll
than-
do a morning.
Yeah, I have,
Okay.
I have two positions. I'm just, I just interviewed the last one today and I've got to do reference checks. So I'm hoping by the end of the week or before then I'll have names for you.
We can
Okay.
squeeze the policies in. They're
These are
ready to go. So,
super
okay.
easy policies.
Okay.
Elizabeth,
Thanks, Bill. I strongly suggest, I won't be able to make the retreat, but I strongly suggest that at that time or at the warned meeting that there be a discussion and possible vote as early as possible on who will represent our SU board at merger negotiations.
Okay. That would be a good idea.
Well, it's my understanding that it's just the local boards that get a representative on the in the merger study committees.
Okay.
So I've double checked with Chelsea. She believes it's just the local boards. I can check with legal if you'd like.
Okay. But we still have to vote on them.
You have to do that at your local
Local
meetings
meeting.
before September 15th. Yeah, so
When's our next
you'll be in
round?
beginning of September.
Okay.
So you'll be on time.
Okay.
For Mount Scottney, Heartland, and Weathersfield. But I'll double check with legal counsel and SU representative. Study committee.
Yeah, I can't imagine it would be appropriate for the SU to have representative at a merger between districts.
I don't think so either,
No.
but we'll double check.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, absolutely, Elizabeth.
Well, with the yield bill, we talked about this at our local board, but the yield bill is really going to hamper 8 districts in our area because the spending cap was lowered from 118% to 115.5% in a year where we have to eat rising costs and several other things. I have asked for our regional board chairs to meet next week. And so I will, I'll send a write-up of that, of what ideas come out of that meeting. It's board chairs, administrators, including any principals, superintendents, and Larry and his cohort, to just, yell about the situation, but also figure out whether we can pinpoint what the problem is in our area that's causing the difficulty in getting under the cap, and whether we can mitigate that together, or whether anybody has any wild ideas. But I'll report out on that, and maybe you might consider putting that on the agenda for the next meeting as well.
On a side note, Elizabeth, I haven't seen anything. I'm wondering if you know what happened to the medical spending bill that went on to the governor's desk.
Are you talking about the reference-based pricing bill?
Yes.
That was unfortunately vetoed by the governor. So, yeah, kind of classic.
The one thing that would help. One thing that would help. Let's just veto it. Okay, sorry.
Yep.
Okay, I can't take a motion. Okay,
Right.
everyone have a great night.
Thanks to you.
Yeah.
Oh, one more thing, just as a
Sure.
footnote announcement, and that is that the Lace Up for Laura fundraiser in honor of Laura McNaughton is this Saturday in Perkinsville.
Thank you.
It's a great time, and be sure to stick around afterwards. They have a raffle where they give away a lot of great prizes.
I'm signed up, so if you want to see me hobble all the way through.
Girls, but
Thank you, everybody, for coming, especially our community members. I appreciate your presence. So thank you.
All right, stop recording.